Welcome in a new episode of Rassegna Caffè Live. Today we delve into the remarkable journey of South Korea, a nation forged in the aftermath of World War II and shaped by its division with North Korea following the Korean War. The tension between the two Koreas has defined much of the region's history, but South Korea's internal struggles for democracy are equally compelling. Not long ago, the country witnessed a pivotal moment. In fact, on the 3rd of December 2024, President Yoon declared martial law, accusing the opposition of anti-state activities, a move that shocked the nation and the world. This emergency decree, the first in over 40 years, was swiftly overturned by an extraordinary parliamentary vote as lawmakers and citizens rallied against it. In the aftermath, President Yoon was impeached, sparking protests and investigations into allegations of abuse of power and insurrection. This political turmoil has sent ripples through South Korea's economy and shaken its political foundations. Yoon, now suspended, could become the first sitting South Korean president to face arrest, adding to a dramatic chapter in the nation's history of martial law and political scandals. On the other side, there are other peaceful protests that are going on because, of course, South Korean citizens are protesting about what happened on the 3rd of December, but as well as students protesting for their rights and what is going on in university. In particular, mode, Dunda University, since 11th of November, students have staged a sit-in, initially occupying the main building and blocking access to classroom buildings across campus, forcing classes to move online and a planned job fair to be cancelled because there are plans for some departments to admit male students. In fact, Dunda is a women's university, and there are problematics and issues related to gender equality. Some departments, universities in South Korea are designed to be including women's only spaces in a country that is grappling with issues related to gender equality. And I'm very happy because today we'll talk about these issues that are strongly related to South Korea, as well as politics and international relations and gender equality, with a South Korean student, Yeseo, who participated in the peaceful protests that emerged during these turbulent weeks. She will share her first-hand experience of standing up for democracy in the face of uncertainty, offering insights into how young people are shaping South Korea's political future. So, first of all, I want to thank Yeseo for finding time to be here with me today despite the time zone. So, thank you so much, Yeseo. It's always a pleasure to talk about these important topics with someone who's from the country I'm talking about. I think that it's always very interesting to hear someone's point of view, especially when they're from the country we're talking of. Otherwise, we would let stereotypes talk instead of truth, and first-hand of experience. So thank you again so much for your time. And my first question for you would be, in your opinion, what is the current climate for organizing peaceful protests in South Korea, and how have things evolved in recent years? Before replying, let me introduce you quick. Yeseo is majoring in advertising at Sookmyung University in Seoul, South Korea, and she's double majoring in business analytics. She's worked on a student council of the College of Social Science for 2 years, and during these 2 years, she has gained a major interest in feminism, political, and social issues, which are the topics we're gonna talk about today. So again, Yeseo, thank you so much for your time, and I'll wait to hear your opinion about what is the current climate for organizing peaceful protests in South Korea. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Camilla, and thank you for your interest and inviting me. Well, about the peaceful protests, the need for peaceful protest has been talked about for decades, until the recent protests calling for the impeachment of President Yoon Suk-yeol. The most prominent form of protest in South Korea was the candlelight protest. Candlelight protest began in 2002, the year I born, and have been a common way for citizens to make their voices heard against the government. The most iconic and largest candlelight protest I can remember was in 2016 to call the impeachment of President Park Geun-hye. It actually led to her impeachment. It's worth noting that the protest against Yoon Sang-yeol, sparked by his declaration of martial law last month, have taken a very different form. K-pop and light stick are two examples. Light sticks are the tool used by K-pop fans to cheer on singers, and the reason why we brought them to this protest area was because controversial comments that candles go out when the wind blows, which is made by a politician who opposed the impeachment of President Park Geun-hye at 2016. In response, citizens came out with candle-shaped LED lanterns, and some idol fans came out with light sticks. In particular, as many media have noticed, the fact is that the protest was organized by women was also a trigger for this change. The moderator of the protest, who was with microphone on the stage, is also a 27 years old woman, and she is using K-pop to make the atmosphere of the protest passionate, peaceful, and joyful by using melody or lyrics that are appropriate to the situation. And many people singing along with her are known to be women in the 20 to 30s, including me. And I think this is the reason why the number of light sticks at the protest increased significantly. Because many of them are people who like K-pop and have favorite singers and have light sticks to support them. In addition, another unique culture of current protest is that there are for food and drinks we can get free. The people who are unable to visit there have started to send them as a way to express their participation and gratitude to the people out there. And they are raising money to pay for the food and drink trucks, or asking restaurants and cafes nearby Protest Square to pay a certain amount of money in advance and give it away for free to people out there. I see these changes as positive, and what I'm glad more than anything else is that people are starting to recognize these protests are a social phenomenon and culture, not something antisocial or violent, and that people who participate in protests are not mobs, but ordinary citizens, and they are just actively participating in a democratic society. For example, as you mentioned, the protest at Dongdeok Women's University, and before this impeachment protest, people easily say that Dongdeok Women's University students are so violent. But after this protest, culture has shown, people are now saying that Dongdeok Women's University should hear what students are saying. So I've also noticed that some of my friends who were previously worried about participating in those protests because they thought it could be dangerous or maybe part of the violent students have changed their thought. And some of friends are decided to come with me. So I think these changes are positive and women are making something.
Thank you for your perspective regarding this and sharing with us even the point of view of your friends and their change of perspective towards the protests, because I can imagine it's not easy to decide to participate in a protest for various reasons, and it's always an act of strength and bravery to do that. And regarding this topic again, so protest. From your point of view, how do South Koreans perceive the role of these marches, these protests in shaping political change? Are there particular issues that have sparked more public demonstrations?
Well, in my prospects, I think in Korean history, it was assembled citizen, not a great leader, who have achieved significant revolutions. For example, in school history class, or Koreans learn about the independence movement, which happened 100 years ago, and the protest against the dictatorship a few decades ago, and the presidential impeachment protest a few years ago, which happened in 2016. So I think we've naturally learned the power of protest. The biggest democratic protests are the ones that took place in 1980 and 1987 during the dictatorship. We had a mature people and a not so mature government, and many precious lives were lost because of it. And I'm sure I can find friends who lost family members in those protests. So we have a responsibility to protect the democracy which they made, they won with losing their lives. So some people still think that protests should be solemn and criticize people who only participate in the recent protest once or twice, or if their motive is just because the protest is Instagrammable. So, however, I see it as a positive thing that people participate in protests for a variety of reasons. No matter the way they participate or what their motivation is, even if it's just to Instagram it or to see friends or to see protesters wearing funny costumes or carrying unique flags. Because the purpose of these peaceful protests is to put pressure to politicians by showing them that so many people care about this issue, especially that so many voters feel the same way. So I think no matter what the intention is, as long as we come together and say in the same space and make our voices heard, we can make a change.
As you say, everyone can be a change maker, and it's easier to be a change maker where there's not a fear for something bad to happen. Uh, whether, of course, it's always more difficult to do that in countries like South Korea, as you said, where in the past demonstrations have costed precious lives. And I think it's important to talk about this topic because, as you said, there are ways of preserving democracy that sometimes we give for granted, but it's not granted. We have to fight for it. And I think the best part of our generation, is to stay connected, to fight for a change. And even social media, as you said, some people might take part just to then put it on social media, on Instagram. And that is good as well, even if, of course, sometimes, can get to a certain amount of, being too much on the social media and doing just for the social media. But at the same time, it's good because it's a way of publicizing it and making other people interested in what's going on. And right now, social medias are a sort of web of, like a connection that makes all us younger generations feel like we live in the same world finally, and we can all fight for the same issues wherever we're from. And thank you very much for your powerful perspective on it. And my last question to you would be your opinion on the external perspective. We've been talking about South Korea, from the inside. So what's going on from the inside? But how do you think the international community views South Korea's approach to civil unrest and protest movements? What do you think is the perception from abroad?
Mm, about global media, and I have heard that many global media are showing positive interest in the protest in South Korea. And I'm grateful for this positive attention. As I mentioned earlier, it was common that protests should be perceived to be solemn, which means that these protests with K-pop and lightsticks were easy to be criticized. And the fact that the lightsticks were held by women was also a feature that could easily be mocked because women are still often mocked in South Korea. However, I think that the fact that various media positively evaluated this protest culture has influenced the way Koreans evaluate those protests. I think Korean media became more interested in protest culture because overseas media started to pay attention to it and evaluated it positively. To a certain extent, this protest culture has been so positively evaluated that even the protesters who opposed the impeachment of Yoon Suk-yeol are now waving some kind of red light bar thing. And perhaps Korean media and people would be hard to catch how to evaluate this new protest culture because we have never seen the protests with light sticks and K-pop before, even as for us, protests have always been about something like civic unity, the determination to continue the passion of the generations before us, and again, solemn. So I'm grateful to the international community for being that loud, sending that loud, positive voice, which made Koreans to shout out. I also think it is great like this. So that's it.
Thank you, Yeseo. I think the Western point of view on South Korea is it being a great country. You mentioned it a few times for K-pop, and definitely a country to visit as well. I've got a close friend of mine who chose as a gift for graduation a trip to South Korea. So there's definitely interest in what's going on in South Korea, as well as a sort of admiration for your bravery and your opinions about things. Because as I said before, it's not it's always good to fight for change. It's good to fight for democracy, and that should never be given for granted. Even, I come from a country where fascism was a dictatorship from the 20s until the 40s. So we lived 20 years of dictatorship, and sometimes I see Italians giving, democracy for granted, and it's not. Democracy is not granted anywhere because we have the power to vote, we have the power to protest, but that could be taken from us, unfortunately, anytime, because we don't have, much power. But what we can do is try to do the best with the means we have, being it, I don't know, a podcast or participating in protests or just making our voices heard. Thank you so much, Yezo, for our time and to talk with us about your interesting perspective about it. Thank you for your time and keep the fight. And thank you to all the listeners. I'll see you soon with the next episode of Rassegna Caffè Live.